Before we go any further, let's just go ahead and name names because this story does not exist in an abstract. Now, this starts with Nick Shirley. He's an independent journalist who traveled to Minneapolis inside of the state of Minnesota, and he documented what he says were daycare centers that were receiving millions of taxpayer dollars while showing no signs of operating. Then it escalates when the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services under President Donald J. Trump freezes $185 million in child care funding administered through the Administration for Children and Families. And then this is where the story turns personal. So after the video goes viral, after the funding is frozen, after the federal government steps in, Nick Shirley, he reports receiving death threats. That's right, guys. Not criticism, not debate, actual threats. And suddenly, this isn't just about daycare fraud anymore. This is now about what happens when a single viral video exposes a system that's powerful enough to move federal agencies, and then at the same time is dangerous enough to make someone want the messenger to be silenced. Well, tonight, we're going to go ahead and walk you through how this went from one YouTuber on the ground, boots on the ground, to a national scandal, and why the media completely scrambled, why politicians reacted, and why this story is far from over. Because if this really is one of the largest frauds ever uncovered, the real question isn't what they found. The question is, well, what happens next and who pays the price for exposing it? Do me a favor, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and make sure to watch the video all the way to the very end. We have some details to uncover. Now, this story, it doesn't begin with a committee, a task force, a government audit. It actually begins with Nick Shirley, an independent journalist walking into Minneapolis, Minnesota, camera on, asking a question that nobody in power seemed eager to answer. And what really happened next, this is the part that pretty much changes everything. So after Nick Shirley's footage went viral, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, it stepped in under President Donald J. Trump and froze $185 million in federal child care funding that was directly tied to Minnesota. And so this money flowed through the Administration for Children and Families, and then suddenly the system slammed into a wall. Now, understand the order of events because it really does matter. This wasn't some proactive audit. This wasn't some routine oversight. Federal action came after exposure, after the public saw what Shirley saw. And this is the tension at the center of this entire story here. One YouTuber versus an entire bureaucratic system. Now, this wasn't some internet drama, some internet beef. This was frozen federal money and a state that was forced to answer questions that it couldn't dodge anymore. So when Nick Shirley arrived in Minneapolis, he wasn't reviewing spreadsheets or some leaked emails. He was doing something that was way more basic and far more damning. He went to the addresses. What he documented were daycare centers that were listed as being active and funded, but they showed no signs of life. Locked doors, windows completely blacked out, phones that rang endlessly with no answer, no staff, no children. And this is where the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Now, on paper, these facilities, they were compliant, they were licensed, they were approved, and they got paid. In reality, they looked abandoned or maybe even never operational at all. So Shirley didn't claim perfection. He didn't even claim every single site was empty, but the pattern was unmistakable. If these were really legitimate functioning daycare centers, there should have been some evidence of activity, kids being dropped off, parents interacting, staff present, but instead there was dead silence. And silence is dangerous when millions of taxpayer dollars are involved. So here's where people really get uncomfortable, because once you zoom out, the math just stops being dismissible. In Minneapolis, or I should say in Minnesota, child care funding doesn't move in hundreds or even thousands. It moves in millions per license, okay? And according to the data that was reviewed alongside Nick Shirley's on-the-ground reporting, there weren't just a few questionable daycare centers. There were actually hundreds of them, hundreds of licenses, seven-figure contracts, multiple daycare entities that were registered to the same address, sometimes even to the same room. Now, if you stretch this over years, even using conservative assumptions, not worst-case scenarios, the totals climb very fast. I'm talking about tens of millions becomes hundreds of millions. And then when you account for how long some of these entities were funded, the numbers push easily toward billion-dollar territory. And so this is why this is not just one bad actor or one rogue facility. This looks systemic, structural, embedded. So it kind of raises the next question that shook Washington. How did this scale of funding pass oversight without tripping alarms? And this leads us directly to Minnesota's role, or lack of one, right? But this story is not just about daycare fraud or big government failures. This is actually about what happens when systems stop protecting the people that they're supposed to serve. I heard from a man who paid $22 for his medication. Then the next plan year, the same prescription jumped to $87. It was the same drug. It was the same pharmacy. Nothing changed except accept the Medicare plan. Now, that quiet price jump cost him hundreds of dollars before he even realized what happened. And this is exactly how money disappears when oversight fails. And this is why I partner with Chapter. They review your Medicare coverage line by line so that hidden cost changes don't blindside your budget. Now, most people, they don't even find out about this until it's way too late. This is why viewers are already calling the phone number right there on your screen, 909-563-8279, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. You can click the link down below in the description, because whether it's daycare funds, childcare funds, or Medicare dollars, the money always moves quietly until someone forces it out into the open. Now, when federal officials at HHS asked a very simple question, is this fraud isolated or is it broader? The answer from Minnesota's Child Care Services Office, it was chilling. I mean, they couldn't say, not confidently, not clearly, not at all. In fact, that answer mattered more than any viral clip, because if a state cannot even certify whether millions of dollars are being stolen from a program that's designed to help children, well, that state loses credibility real fast. And this wasn't an accusation. This was an admission of uncertainty. And uncertainty at this scale, this is unacceptable, right? And so from Washington's perspective, the message was clear. Minnesota either didn't know where the money was going or they couldn't prove it. And this is the moment that oversight turns into liability. It's also the moment that federal agencies stop trusting internal controls and start preparing for intervention, which kind of brings us to the instant that everything locked up, the moment HHS pulled the plug. Now, this is where the story crosses a line that very few scandals ever cross. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, led operationally here by Jim O'Neill, the HHS Deputy Secretary, alongside with Alex Adams, who oversees the Administration for Children and Families, made a decision that sent shockwaves through Minnesota. They froze $185 million in child care funding. Not reduced, not paused for review, frozen. Now, this was not symbolic. That money was tied directly to programs that were serving roughly 19,000 children, including infants and toddlers. Now, HHS made clear that this was not punishment, it was protection. If fraud was siphoning dollars away, then every stolen dollar was a dollar taken from a kid. HHS also triggered new requirements, justification receipts and photo evidence and documentation before payments would resume. Now, that is extraordinary federal intervention, and it only happens when trust collapses, which kind of raises the next very uncomfortable question. If the freeze happened now, what was already happening behind the scenes, right? So here's the part that many people missed while the headlines focused on the freeze. Under President Donald J. Trump, this wasn't the beginning of federal scrutiny. It was an escalation. Both Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, and Kash Patel, director of the FBI, they have publicly acknowledged that dozens of indictments that are tied directly to Minnesota fraud cases, they were already underway. In fact, the FBI was not idle. Neither was the Department of Homeland Security. DHS had already released videos showing agents conducting fraud investigations. Cases had been building quietly. So the real tension, the real question becomes unavoidable. If federal law enforcement already knew fraud was happening, if indictments were already being filed, then why did it take a viral video for funding to be frozen? Now, that question right there doesn't accuse, but it does expose a weakness in the system. And once that question hit the public, the media couldn't ignore it anymore. And so once the story broke past social media and into the national bloodstream, the tone shifted real fast. That shift became visible when CNN showed up in Minneapolis, and CNN confronted Nick Shirley on site at one of the very daycare locations questioned in his reporting. Notice what CNN focused on. Not the money, not the contracts, not the millions flowing to addresses that have no visible operations in them. Instead, the questions from CNN were centered on timing, access, and process. What time did you show up? Were the doors supposed to be locked? Did you come during normal business hours? Now, I want you to understand that framing that CNN placed around the situation matters, because while media attention often claims to investigate, this moment looked more like damage control than discovery. The numbers didn't disappear, the funding freeze didn't reverse, but suddenly the spotlight was on the messenger instead of the system. You see what they did there? That is when it became very clear. The narrative was slipping out of the institutional hands. And once that happens, politics always follows. So as the media scrambled, Minnesota's political fraud lines cracked wide open. Republican lawmakers in Minnesota publicly acknowledged that they had in fact worked with Nick Shirley, not to manufacture the story, but to bring attention attention to concerns that they had said existed for years. Now, that distinction is critical here. This wasn't the GOP inventing fraud. This wasn't the GOP amplifying exposure once the public finally saw it. And this is why the moment matters politically. The story didn't start in the legislature. It didn't start with a press release. It started online, then moved to the state level, then detonated federally. Now, that order flipped the usual power structure right on its head. And so once Republicans stepped in, Democrats accused them of politicization. Republicans countered that ignoring fraud is what really politicized this in the first place. Either way, no matter how you slice it, the narrative had already escaped control. And for the first time, the consequences weren't abstract anymore. They were personal. Now, this is the moment that the story stops being theoretical. So after the funding freeze, after the media pile-on, after the political fallout, Nick Shirley says that the response turned dark. Not angry comments, not criticism, actual threats, including messages warning him that he would be kirked, as in Charlie Kirk. Right. So that word matters because it signals intent, not disagreement. And it also fits a pattern that shows up again and again when whistleblowers expose systems that are tied to real money and real power. History tells us this part is predictable. When fraud is exposed, the system doesn't always defend itself with facts. Sometimes it tries fear instead. This is why this particular detail cannot be brushed aside as online noise. The threats came after federal actions, not before. After reputations were damaged, after money stopped flowing in, you see? And that changes how you read the entire saga, because now the question isn't just was fraud exposed, it's who benefits from silence and who pays the price for breaking it. This is when the story stopped being local and it went fully national. Stories don't go national just because they're big. They go national when narrative control breaks. And that break happened when Elon Musk and JD Vance amplified Nick Shirley's reporting. Now, at that point, this was no longer a Minnesota issue or YouTube controversy. It became unavoidable. So once those names entered the conversation, the media could not contain it. Federal agencies couldn't ignore it, and political actors, they couldn't pretend that it was fringe. That's the power shift that we're watching in real time. One independent journalist publishes evidence, a viral audience verifies it, national figures amplify it, and institutions are forced to respond publicly. That's not chaos. That's accountability evolving. And whether people like it or not, this case is now a blueprint for how modern oversight actually happens, which kind of brings us to this uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. This story is not over. So a lot of people hear funding freeze and they assume that the story ends here, but it really doesn't. The $185 million freeze imposed by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, this is temporary by design. But what comes next is where things get very dangerous for anyone who abuses the system. Audits don't just pause money, they trace it. They follow the paper trails backward. They look for patterns, shell entities, duplicate licenses, false reporting. That's when the clawbacks happen. That's when civil penalties turn criminal. That's when indictments expand. Under President Donald J. Trump, federal agencies have made this clear that this is not about optics. It's about control and accountability. If funds were misused, the question becomes how much can be recovered and who signed off along the way. Now, here's the quiet part. Once a federal agency loses trust in a state's internal controls, that distrust doesn't just reset overnight, which kind of means, Minnesota isn't just facing a pause, it's facing prolonged scrutiny. And that is when systems either clean themselves up or they collapse under their own weight. Now, every scandal eventually narrows to one uncomfortable question. If this required a viral video, if it required public outrage, if it required a YouTuber on the ground before federal money was frozen, how many other systems have not yet been exposed? That's the question that this story is leaving hanging, because the most disturbing part isn't just what Nick Shirley uncovered in Minnesota, it's what this reporting implies about oversight more broadly. I mean, look, systems don't fail loudly, they fail quietly. They fail behind paperwork, compliance checklists, and assumptions that somebody else is watching, right? And when someone finally pulls back the curtain, the reaction right there tells you everything. Now, under President Donald J. Trump, federal agencies responded once the truth was undeniable, but the cost of silence before that moment, it's still being counted. So the real takeaway is not partisan, it's structural. Sunlight didn't just expose the system, it forced the system to react. And once that happens, there's no going back. Drop a like, subscribe, share this video because everyone needs to know what's going on in Minnesota right now. Appreciate you guys. We'll get the truth out one video at a time. We'll see you next time.